Okay, this is the ninth and part 2 of hundreds of articles and exhibits serving as an international consultant of economic and government choices. Today is a retribution ode on those who continue to promote and endorse unconstitutional new case law changes, ill-gotten gains. Now, under federal law, the Fair Collections Practice Act, number 812, deceptive forms. Federal law requires deceptive forms violating any victim's constitutional 14th Amendment rights of equal protection of the law are in fact liable and owe retribution. Now, under this article 812, it clearly says, shall be liable to the same extent and in the same manner as the debt collector is liable. Now, my constitutional duty as a U.S. citizen is guaranteed by the Constitutional First Amendment of freedom of speech and freedom of the press. So I will continue to write these articles and provide the public with public service announcements that constitutionally allows me this full disclosure to all investors. And it prevents the prosecution of me being a federal felon accomplice for over 7 years I fought these deceptive forms of fraudulent government documentation, federal bankruptcy fraud, and more. This will prevent future court arguments of two-bit felons quoting these new case law changes against me. For over 7 years, my filed evidence proves beyond a shadow of a doubt, and that my constitutional 14th Amendment rights of equal protection in the law have been intentionally violated. Now remember, the judicial branch can rule new case law changes. However, such rulings are unconstitutional when in direct violation of any victim's constitutional 14th Amendment of equal protection of the law. Now, constitutionally, when the United States legislative branch and the executive branch create, inflict, and allow new laws, when they get home, the legislators and the executives and all who participated in the new law are in fact governed by the same new law's liabilities, retribution owed to the new law's victims. Now, constitutionally, when the U.S. judicial branch rules creating, inflicting, and are allowing deceptive forms as unconstitutional new case law changes, all who promoted, endorsed, and or participated are in fact governed the same way of the same unconstitutional new case law changes, liabilities, and retribution owed, and are liable to like-kind lawsuits filed against them themselves. Especially when these deceptive forms disregard their own constitutional oath, disregard their own jurisdiction's liabilities, and anyone who disregards their own investors' liabilities and the retribution owed, as in Exhibit 9, against the stockholders and they themselves by filing an illegal description of changing the legal description of an illegal description on my Artho Quarter ranch. This self-incriminates not only themselves but their stockholders. And And anyone, and especially all those who breach the Constitution, breach the current laws, breach and squandered 7 years of taxpayer fundings of said courts. And especially all those who continue to promote, endorse, and or participate in these unconstitutional new case law changes are in fact liable. This completes our forefathers' constitutional checks and balances. Because if you create a new law, or you create an unconstitutional new case law changes, then when you get home, you're subject to the same. Until these unconstitutional new case law changes are overruled and all victims' retribution is paid in full, all these new case law changes will remain in effect from this day forth. For over 7 years, from March 2015 to April 2022, I have exhausted my constitutional duties as a U.S. citizen to seek and enforce the constitutional 14th right of equal protection law for all investors, long-term, sustainable investments. For over 7 years, I've petitioned these courts against the opposition's multitude of felony deceptive forms of fraudulent government documentation and more. The final petition was within the federal bankruptcy court's jurisdiction, petitioning the closed appeal case and the closed and settled bankruptcy case. Petition to constitutionally enforce, uphold, and prevent each and every count, each and every violation of law from becoming unconstitutional new case law changes from this day forth. Unfortunately, the taxpaying Congress-funded federal court of law dismissed the cases without a hearing, thus to promote and endorse all courts of law's rulings of each and every count, each and every violation of our current laws, as so ruled unconstitutional new case law change from this day forth. Now, in the Law Reporters Law Library Archives, it's been requested that this is filed under Artho versus Bank/Lawyers rulings, so that when anybody is looking for a way to get out of jail or prevent from being prosecuted, these rulings allow any two-bit felon the self-justification of quoting all or any of these new case law changes to any judge and any jury within any court of law from this day forward to obtain the two-bit felon's unsustainable short-term ill-gotten gains. Okay, under international consulting of economic and government choices. Now, common sense will tell you, when any nation's court of law knows full well of a bank's multitude of felonies, and yet fails to nip it in the bud and throw the felon bank out of the court in the first place. Now that's the most economically and the best for any nation's economy. And yet continue to squander any nation's taxpayer fundings of said courts of law for over 7 years of rulings to favor the absolute powerful's ill-gotten gains, knowing full well intentional high treason rulings economically destroy any nation's economy. History reflects these type nations will be forced to print fiat money to offset the nation's destroyed economy. For the market simply does not care, nor does the market even consider who the absolute powerful are, what their non-cash flowing economic policies are, and the market simply doesn't care how many political hate speeches are made to government confiscate ill-gotten gains that in fact destroy any nation's economy in the first place. The market only favors nations who respect all citizens' rights to earn a living while self-stimulating the people's economy through investors' investments, and reinvesting earnings, stock gains, and or retribution via any nation's encouraged tax breaks. Now, when we look back into the 1930s, and economists, I was told, was asked by the Nazis to cure their destroyed economy. And so the economists took them to an alley to hear the sound of a printer printing fiat money, and consulted the Nazis on these choices. Look, you can either quit printing fiat money, get out of the way, and respect all citizens' rights to exist as full and equal human beings who will earn a living while self-stimulating the people's economy through investors' investments. In other words, it doesn't matter what religion, what color, what race, or anything. Every nation needs all of its citizens to keep the economy going. When you start discriminating, or if you're a racist, your economy's not going to last very long. It's not going to cash flow. Or, the economist said, you can continue to imprison, enslave, and murder your professionals, which is what the Nazis did, forcing businesses to leave your nation with their talent, assets, and money, of which these talents, assets, and money will in fact stimulate your competing nation's economy. While the Nazis continue to destroy their non-cash flowing economy. This is certainly a good example of the dumbest choices made in history, but I'm sure there's more. And the third is, the economist said, or you can continue to rattle your sabers, go around nations with the rights to keep and bear arms, and the nations that have enough ammunition to defend the citizens from their own domestic government and or foreign invading governments. That the Nazis invaded only unarmed citizens of weak nations to steal that nation's assets to temporarily prop up the Nazis' failing economy, of which in fact never cash flowed in the first place. Now, should have taxes been raised to imprison these Nazis, or have the courage within the nation to imprison these Nazis, or deport the Nazis penniless until retribution is paid in full, and only then allow the Nazis to reapply for citizenship, would have been the best choice.